In this world, there are two types of people. On one hand, you have the Phil Mickelson haters, and on the other hand, people that I would actually want to play golf with.
Hello, hi. Phil Mickelson finally made an appearance.
Return of the Jedi, baby. Phil's back.
I don't condone human rights violations at all.
I'm glad you made that clear, Phil.
I don't think nobody here does, throughout the world.
None of y'all do. You sure? I find this puzzling because when you are heavily financed,
As opposed to just heavily financed.
by a regime that dismembers a journalist with a bone saw.
Do you know who's heavily financing the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia, which is paying the players to play the LIV Golf Tour? All of American companies are. Saudi Arabia is heavily invested in ETFs. Prior to that, they were invested heavily in Disney and Facebook. You can look it up.
When you are being funneled by a regime that has an atrocious human rights record.
And then he goes full virtue signaling for a long time, over and over. Moral superiority, you shouldn't take the money, yada, yada, yada. But you know what? Phil rises from the ashes.
A few months ago, you were reported as describing the Saudis as scary.
Phil overcomes his fear and shows up.
What did you mean by that? And if they're that scary, why are you here, given that they're bankrolling this tournament?
The answer is, what is $200 million?
Well, certainly I've said and done a lot of things that I regret, and I'm sorry
Doing things that you regret is part of the human condition.
for that and for the hurt that it's caused a lot of people. I don't condone human rights violations at all.
Let's count how many times Phil Mickelson has to say that he doesn't condone human rights violations during this interview.
I don't think nobody here does, throughout the world, and I'm certainly aware of what has happened with Jamal Khashoggi, and I think it's terrible. I've also seen the good that the game of golf has done throughout history, and I believe that LIV Golf is going to do a lot of good for the game as well.
Answer the question you wanted to be asked. 101. Well played, Phil.
And I'm excited about this opportunity. That's why I'm here.
But isn't there a danger that you're also being seen as a tool of sports washing? An attempt to try and improve the image of a human rights abusing regime through sport, and that ultimately you could be seen as a Saudi stooge, and that could tarnish your legacy? Is that you comfortable with that?
Translation. This reporter will go out of his way to try to tarnish Phil Mickelson's legacy as a Saudi stooge if Phil plays in this league. That smile means, I despise you.
I said earlier, I don't condone human rights violations. I don't know how I can be any more clear.
That's time number 2 that Phil explicitly states he doesn't condone human rights violations. Phil, you can never be clear enough for them.
And I have a lot of strong opinions on things that should and could be a lot better. One of the mistakes I've made is voicing those publicly.
Folks, here's the crux of this interview. Phil Mickelson realizes he shouldn't voice his opinion publicly because he's going to get crucified for it. And what does the media want him to do? They want him to keep voicing his opinion publicly. They're looking for tasty little sound bites they can use against him. He's smarter and wiser now.
So I will really make an effort to keep those conversations behind closed doors going forward. I think that's the way to be the most efficient and get the most out of it.
Great job, media people. I remember when a young Tiger Woods first came out, and he did an interview, I think, with Sports Illustrated. And the Sports Illustrated author said that Tiger told a dirty joke, something along those lines. Tiger gets punished publicly, and thereafter he becomes stoic robot Tiger, always giving a canned answer. And that's what you've done to Phil Mickelson. No more of this fresh, in the moment Phil. We're going to get the canned robot Phil from now on, and you made him that way.
Look, can you just clarify? You've apologised again just now. Can you just clarify what you're apologising for?
Seriously, how annoying are some British people with that accent? Can you just clarify what you're apologising for?
Is it you're sorry for speaking the truth about the Saudis? Or are you sorry for the shameless hypocrisy of taking their money anyway?
Nothing like giving Phil a false dichotomy.
I understand that many people have very strong opinions.
Exactly 0 of those people with strong opinions were offered $200 million to play on the LIV Golf Tour.
And may disagree with my decision. And I can empathize with that. But at this time, this is an opportunity that gives me a chance to have the most balance in my life going forward, and I think this is going to do a lot of good for the game.
Phil put in an awkward spot, but if he was selling arms to Saudi Arabia or going there to ask for some oil, that's not a big issue, I guess.
Phil, can you tell me if you are serving a ban or have served a...
I'm sorry, say again?
Can you tell me if you've served a ban or are serving a ban with the PGA Tour?
Dealing with morons makes Phil Mickelson very thirsty.
I choose not to speak publicly on PGA Tour issues at this time.
Probably because when he spoke with Alan Shipnuck, the quote-unquote Phil Mickelson biographer guy, it blew up in his face. So now moving forward, he's probably not going to say a whole lot publicly.
Okay, can you say if you're going to play in next week's US Open?
I will play next week's US Open. I'm looking forward to it.
And finally, we get to real golf substantive questions. Phil Mickelson's playing in the US Open. Glad to have you back. You're a superstar. You handled this interview like a boss. People at home, if you want me to cover the rest of this interview with Phil, hit me up in the comments section. I'll do a part 2. Peace.